Welcome back to the Rock Vault, where the amps are always hot. Today, we're stepping into the thunder and fire of the 1970s, a decade when hard rock ruled car stereos, basement parties, and packed arenas. These weren't just songs. They were the pulse of denim-clad youth chasing freedom, rebellion, and electricity. So crank it up. The vault is opening. Few riffs in rock history are as instantly recognizable as the snarling four-note opening of Smoke on the Water. Deep Purple captured lightning in a bottle with this anthem, born from a real-life fire on the shores of Lake Geneva. The track blends gritty blues-based guitar, driving bass, and pounding drums with Ian Gillan's soaring vocals, creating a blueprint for what hard rock would become. It's raw, it's primal, and it's unforgettable. Recorded during the sessions for Machine Head, the song's origin story is as legendary as the riff itself. While preparing to record at the Montreux Casino, the band watched in disbelief as the venue burned to the ground during a Frank Zappa concert. The smoke that drifted across Lake Geneva became their muse, immortalized in lyrics and cemented into the DNA of rock. It's not just a song. It's a story carved into 6 minutes of pure power. For those who lived it, Smoke on the Water was more than a radio hit. It was the soundtrack of late-night drives, the jam every garage band tried to master. The riff kids looped endlessly while dreaming of standing on a stage with Marshall stacks towering behind them. Teenagers in denim jackets and long hair would crank it up on cheap cassette decks, air guitaring that immortal riff until their arms were sore. The song's reach went beyond youth rebellion. FM radio embraced it, blasting it across America and Europe, while arena crowds erupted when Ritchie Blackmore unleashed that opening riff live. It became an anthem of resilience, proof that even chaos, a fire, destruction, smoke filling the sky, could inspire beauty that would last for generations. Even today, when that riff cuts through a speaker, it pulls us back to the first time we heard it. Maybe you were cruising down a highway with the windows down, or maybe you were clutching your first electric guitar, fingers aching as you struggled to master it. Either way, it was a moment that felt larger than life. Smoke on the Water isn't just one of the greatest hard rock songs of the 1970s. It's a cornerstone of the genre, a timeless reminder of the power of riff-driven storytelling. And like the smoke that drifted over Lake Geneva, its echo still lingers in the air.
Back to school, way down inside.
Few songs capture the thunderous shift into the 1970s like Whole Lotta Love. With Jimmy Page's explosive opening riff, John Paul Jones's rumbling bass, and John Bonham's thunderous drumming, this track redefined what hard rock could sound like. And then there was Robert Plant, unleashing one of the most primal, electrifying vocals ever put to tape. Together, it was raw electricity bottled into 5 minutes of pure rock power. Though technically released in late '69, the song dominated FM radio well into the 1970s, blasting out of car stereos and arena speakers across the world. It became Led Zeppelin's calling card in America, where the band transformed from a British blues outfit into rock gods seemingly overnight. The psychedelic midsection, filled with swirling echoes and studio wizardry, wasn't just experimental for its time. It was otherworldly. Fans didn't just hear it, they felt it. For those who lived through it, Whole Lotta Love wasn't just a track, it was an experience. Teenagers in leather jackets huddled around record players, cranking the volume and letting that riff shake the walls. Couples made it their anthem of wild freedom, blasting it through the night as they sped down highways with windows rolled low, hair whipping in the wind. It was dangerous, intoxicating, and unforgettable. The cultural impact was massive. Zeppelin rarely released singles, preferring listeners to consume their albums whole, but this song was too undeniable to ignore. It became their biggest American hit, climbing charts and igniting their reputation as the band who could level entire stadiums with sound. Every live performance turned into a ritual, Bonham's drum thunder shaking the ground, Page's guitar stretching into cosmic improvisations, Plant howling with unrestrained fire. And yet, despite its heavy riffs and blistering energy, Whole Lotta Love carried a sensual groove that set it apart from anything else in rock at the time. It wasn't just noise, it was rhythm, soul, and sheer physical force blended into one immortal recording. Whole Lotta Love didn't just open Led Zeppelin's second album, it opened the door to a decade where hard rock would dominate the culture, soundtrack our youth, and shake the very walls of arenas across the globe. When AC/DC dropped Highway to Hell, it felt like a declaration, a snarling, unfiltered anthem that captured the grit and rebellion of the late 70s. The opening riff, sharp as steel and heavy as rolling thunder, was pure Malcolm and Angus Young magic. Phil Rudd's pounding drums drove it forward like a runaway train, while Bon Scott delivered his vocals with a mix of swagger, menace, and undeniable charm. This wasn't just another rock single, it was a battle cry for every misfit kid who wanted to live loud, fast, and free. By 1979, AC/DC had already built a reputation as one of the most hard-hitting live acts in the world, but Highway to Hell catapulted them into legend. Produced by Mutt Lange, the track polished their raw power just enough to crash into the mainstream without losing its bite. That riff became an instant staple, the kind of hook that made you grab an air guitar whether you were in a smoky bar, a high school gym, or your own bedroom. It was dangerous, infectious, and impossible to ignore. For countless fans, this song was more than just a record. It was rebellion pressed into vinyl. Teenagers blasted it from car stereos while cruising through small-town streets, testing the patience of neighbors who thought the world was going to hell anyway. It became the anthem of Friday nights, of kids sneaking beers behind garages, of friendships forged in the glow of headlights and the roar of guitars, even if you never lived that life. The song made you feel like you did. Tragically, Highway to Hell would be Bon Scott's last hurrah. Just months after its release, the frontman was gone, leaving behind a legacy as one of rock's most electrifying voices. That bittersweet fact only deepens the song's power, a final defiant shout from a man who lived his rock and roll life to the fullest. The track became a cornerstone of AC/DC's identity, bridging the Bon Scott and Brian Johnson eras while remaining a permanent fixture in every set list. Looking back, Highway to Hell feels like more than just a song. It's a time capsule of late 70s energy, the sweat of packed arenas, the smell of vinyl sleeves fresh from the record store, the roar of fans who knew they were part of something bigger than themselves. When that riff kicks in, it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 68. You're transported back to the moment when hard rock was raw, unapologetic, and larger than life. If there's a single track that cemented heavy, riff-driven hard rock as more than just a passing fad, it's Paranoid. Born out of a quick studio jam, the song was written almost as an afterthought, yet it became Black Sabbath's breakout anthem. Tony Iommi's jagged guitar riff cut like a chainsaw, while Geezer Butler's bass and Bill Ward's relentless drumming gave it an unstoppable, marching groove. And then there was Ozzy Osbourne's voice, haunting yet strangely vulnerable, capturing the alienation of a generation caught between rebellion and uncertainty. The song exploded across the airwaves, becoming a defining moment for heavy rock as the 1970s began. In just under 3 minutes, Sabbath unleashed a sound that was darker, heavier, and more unrelenting than anything before it. It wasn't polished, it wasn't pretty, but that's exactly why it resonated. It sounded like the industrial heart of Birmingham, England, where the band came from. It sounded like raw, unfiltered truth. For fans, Paranoid was the kind of song that stayed with you. It blared from bedroom speakers, rattling the walls of suburban homes. It was cranked up on car radios as groups of friends cruised down highways, the riff making them feel invincible. And for the kids who first picked up guitars in the early 70s, this was often the very first riff they tried to master, a gateway into the world of hard rock and heavy metal. Though Black Sabbath would go on to craft even more epic and ambitious songs, Paranoid remains timeless. It's short, it's sharp, and it still hits like a thunderbolt over 50 years later. More than just a single, it was the moment when the underground burst into the mainstream, and hard rock forever changed the landscape of popular music. Sometimes the greatest hard rock gems weren't from the arena giants, but from bands who slipped just beneath the radar. Head East's Never Been Any Reason is one of those treasures, a track that never quite reached Zeppelin or Sabbath levels of fame, but still defined the sound of mid-70s rock radio. With its soaring harmonies, galloping rhythm, and Dave Bickler's piercing keyboard stabs, the song packed all the energy of the era into a single, unforgettable ride. The song opens with a blast of synthesizer that instantly grabs your attention before charging headfirst into crunchy guitar riffs and a rhythm section that just won't quit. The dual vocal harmonies gave it a richness that set it apart from the heavier, riff-dominated hits of the time. It had grit, it had melody, and it carried that signature Midwest bar band swagger, the sound of a group that cut their teeth in smoky clubs before breaking out on the national stage. For fans who remember it, Never Been Any Reason wasn't just a radio staple. It was a soundtrack to weekends spent on the open road. Picture teenagers piling into muscle cars, windows rolled down, blasting this track as the sun set behind them. It was the kind of song that made you feel like anything was possible, that youthful energy would last forever, and the night could stretch on without end. While Head East never achieved the same lasting superstardom as their peers, this song has endured as one of rock's true cult classics. It's been called the rock and roll national anthem by diehard fans, and whenever those harmonies hit, you can't help but be transported back to the golden glow of the 1970s. Never Been Any Reason proves that the spirit of hard rock wasn't confined to just the household names. It thrived in every bar, garage, and small-town stage where kids chased the dream with amps cranked to 10. If one song captured the sheer spectacle of 1970s hard rock, it was Kiss's Detroit Rock City. From the opening car engine rev to the final crashing chords, it was an anthem that sounded as massive as the band looked in their black and silver stage gear. Paul Stanley's commanding vocals, Ace Frehley's razor-edged guitar work, Gene Simmons' pulsing bass, and Peter Criss' steady thunder on the drums all collided to create a track that was equal parts theater and raw power. Released on the Destroyer album, Detroit Rock City told a story as gritty as the music itself, a cautionary tale about a young fan who never made it home from a rock show. That darkness, combined with its irresistible groove, gave the song a cinematic quality. It wasn't just a song, it was a mini-movie, perfectly designed for a decade when rock was more than sound. It was identity, rebellion, and myth rolled into one. For fans in the mid-70s, Detroit Rock City was the anthem of wild nights. Picture-packed stadiums filled with kids in face paint, fists raised high, chanting every word back at the band. Or teenagers cruising through suburban streets, blasting the track from 8-track players, dreaming of escape and freedom. It didn't matter if you were actually in Detroit or 1,000 miles away, the song made you feel like you were part of that roaring crowd, part of something larger than life. The impact of Detroit Rock City went beyond the charts. While it didn't hit as high commercially as some of Kiss's other singles, it became a staple of their live shows, often opening concerts with pyrotechnics, smoke, and walls of amplifiers that rattled arenas to their foundations. It's the kind of track that defined what a rock concert could be. Not just a performance, but an unforgettable spectacle. Decades later, the song remains a fan favorite, its mix of danger, energy, and pure adrenaline still fresh. Drop the needle on it today, and you're instantly transported back to that golden age when hard rock was bold, theatrical, and unapologetically loud. Detroit Rock City stands as a reminder that the 1970s weren't just about riffs. They were about atmosphere, attitude, and the belief that rock and roll could be as big and unstoppable as life itself. When it comes to gritty hard rock attitude, few songs deliver like Nazareth's Hair of the Dog. With its snarling guitar riff, pounding drum beat, and Dan McCafferty's gravel-throated vocal growl, the track was unapologetically raw. It had that swaggering bar-room energy that perfectly captured the rebellious spirit of the mid-70s. And while it may not have dominated the charts like some of its peers, it became a cult classic, a pure shot of hard rock adrenaline. The song's hook, blunt and unforgettable, announced itself with bravado, making it a natural fit for arenas and late-night radio alike. It wasn't polished, it was rough around the edges, and that's exactly what made it irresistible. The talkbox guitar solo from Manny Charlton gave it a distinctive, almost snarling bite, setting it apart from the cleanly produced tracks of the era. This was rock and roll with dirt under its fingernails. Fans who remember hearing Hair of the Dog for the first time will recall how it felt like a jolt of electricity. It was the kind of track you blasted with friends when you wanted to feel invincible. Whether you were tearing down highways in muscle cars or just hanging out in smoky basements, that growling chorus became a rallying cry for every teenager who felt like sticking it to the rules. Though Nazareth never quite reached the superstar level of Zeppelin or Sabbath, this track has lived on for decades as a hard rock essential. It's the kind of song that still makes you clench your fists, stomp your feet, and remember exactly why the 1970s were the golden age of raw, unapologetic rock and roll. Hair of the Dog proves that sometimes the most unforgettable songs aren't the ones topping charts. They're the ones that hit you in the gut and never let go.
Once I rose above the noise and confusion, just to get
Some songs don't just play, they soar, and Kansas's Carry On Wayward Son is one of those anthems that felt destined for the open skies of the 1970s. From the very first a cappella harmonies, the track sets itself apart. Before diving headlong into a storm of crunchy guitar riffs, driving organ lines, and Phil Ehart's propulsive drumming, Steve Walsh's vocals, at once powerful and soulful, gave the song an emotional depth that made it feel more like a journey than a single. Released on the Leftoverture album, Carry On Wayward Son blended progressive ambition with hard rock grit. It wasn't just loud and heavy, it was intricate, shifting between soaring choruses, instrumental breaks, and fiery solos. For a band often overlooked next to giants like Zeppelin or Purple, this was the breakthrough moment that carried Kansas out of regional obscurity and straight onto national FM airwaves. The song became their calling card, climbing the charts and cementing their place in rock history. For fans in 1976, it was more than just a hit. It was the sound of late nights with vinyl spinning under dim lights, the chorus echoing in bedrooms, headphones clamped tight as teenagers closed their eyes and dreamed of something bigger. It was blasting from car stereos on endless summer drives, the chorus hitting like a hymn for a restless generation who wanted to believe there was a road forward, even in uncertain times. Every time that iconic chorus rang out, "Carry on, my wayward son," it felt like an invitation to keep pushing, to endure, to believe in something greater. And that message, paired with its soaring instrumentation, gave the song a timeless quality that still resonates today. Whether you first heard it on vinyl in the 70s or caught it decades later on classic rock radio, it still lifts you up, just as it did back then. Carry On Wayward Son is proof that hard rock wasn't always just about aggression. Sometimes it was about heart, hope, and the kind of ambition that turned a good band into legends. Kansas gave us not just a song, but an anthem for every restless soul who needed a reason to keep moving forward. Few tracks embodied the raw, unchained spirit of mid-70s hard rock like Stranglehold. At over 8 minutes long, it wasn't built for radio singles. It was built for cranking the volume, closing your eyes, and letting the music swallow you whole. Nugent's searing guitar tone, both aggressive and hypnotic, cut through with a precision that felt dangerous yet exhilarating. The groove was relentless, anchored by Cliff Davies's steady drums and Rob Grange's pulsing bass, giving Nugent the perfect canvas to unleash his extended guitar heroics. The track opens with one of the most recognizable riffs of the decade, a slow-burning growl that immediately takes command of the room. Nugent's vocal delivery, half snarl, half sermon, only added to the intensity. But it was the extended solos that truly set Stranglehold apart. This was no tidy 3-minute rocker. This was an odyssey, a showcase of how hard rock could sprawl, breathe, and still keep listeners locked in from start to finish. For fans, hearing Stranglehold in 1975 was like stepping into another dimension. Picture a smoky basement with lava lamps glowing in the corners, kids sprawled on beanbags, letting the guitars swirl around them like fire, or imagine it blasting from an FM station late at night, filling the airwaves with a riff so heavy and hypnotic that you had to pull your car over just to take it all in. It was the kind of song that felt alive, dangerous, and absolutely unforgettable. Though Nugent himself was already notorious for his wild stage presence, Stranglehold cemented him as one of the premier guitar slingers of the decade. The song never needed to top the charts. It became a rite of passage for every rock fan who wanted something rawer, longer, and meaner than the pop singles dominating AM radio. It thrived on FM playlists, where disc jockeys weren't afraid to spin a track that stretched past 8 minutes, because they knew it would keep listeners hooked. Decades later, Stranglehold still stands tall as one of the most definitive statements of 1970s hard rock. It's not just a song. It's an atmosphere, a ride, a stranglehold on your senses that doesn't let go until the final fade-out. Drop the needle on it today, and you're back in that golden era when rock wasn't about fitting in. It was about breaking free. Few songs announce themselves as boldly as Mountain's Mississippi Queen. From the opening cowbell strike to Leslie West's thunderous guitar riff, it's pure, unfiltered hard rock. The track was heavy, gritty, and unapologetic, a showcase of West's colossal guitar tone paired with his soulful, roaring vocals. Felix Pappalardi's bass locked in perfectly with Corky Laing's drumming, creating a wall of sound that felt both raw and unstopped. Though Mountain never reached the commercial heights of Zeppelin or Sabbath, Mississippi Queen carved out its place in rock history. It was short, explosive, and unforgettable. The kind of song that didn't waste a second. West's guitar solo was blistering, his phrasing fierce yet melodic. And when paired with that iconic cowbell, the song became instantly recognizable. It was the band's signature hit, and it gave hard rock one of its most enduring anthems. For fans who remember the early 70s, Mississippi Queen was everywhere, on jukeboxes, blaring from car radios, and filling smoky bars with its swaggering energy. Teenagers would crank it up and feel unstoppable, pounding their fists on dashboards in time with that cowbell. It was a song that made you want to drive faster, live louder, and forget about everything except the raw thrill of the moment. The track's influence outlasted its chart run, becoming a staple of classic rock radio and a rite of passage for guitarists learning to master that crushing riff. Even today, the opening notes instantly transport you back to that era. Denim jackets, roaring engines, and nights that seemed to stretch forever. Mississippi Queen may have been Mountain's shining moment, but what a moment it was. It stands as proof that sometimes one song is all it takes to etch your name into rock immortality. And with that cowbell still echoing through the decades, it remains a hard rock anthem that will never fade. And there you have it, 10 hard rock anthems that shook the 1970s and still echo through our memories today. These songs weren't just loud, they were life itself. the soundtrack of youth, rebellion, and nights that felt endless. Each riff, each chorus carved its place in rock history and in our hearts. Which of these takes you back the most? Share your stories in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more trips down rock's golden highway. Until next time, keep the vinyl spinning.